years old. I was not lucky enough to figure it out early. It took me 7 years to feel secure and knowledgeable enough to actually begin my transition. I only felt able to, thanks to the support of my wonderful partners, access to the consent-based healthcare that, despite everything, still somehow makes the United States one of the best places in the world to be trans, and the gradual acceptance of society. In other words, the community that I was blessed enough to be able to have at my back. When I came out 3 years ago, things were getting better. Now I find myself the target of one of the most focused genocidal campaigns in recent American history. On day one, Donald Trump declared my existence an abomination in the eyes of the law. In 72 hours, I lost more rights than trans people have gained in the last 50 years. They are, according to them, trans women are a public threat. Trans men and non-binary people don't exist at all. They are trying to erase us right in front of you. Before November, I was worried. Now I am terrified. I have been harassed and threatened in the street. Police confiscated the tools I carried for self-defense. I was followed, chased, and threatened with being shot in the middle of a crowded Union Square in broad daylight. As soon as he won, every single one of us felt how emboldened the bigots in our lives instantly were. I celebrated my 40th birthday this last year by going to the courthouse on that morning and legally changing my sex and name. As of October 1st, there is an F under my sex designation, and I am legally Frances Joanne Robin Dinozzi. But now, I do not know if I will be allowed to get an ID that reflects who I legally am, and even worse, I do not know if my merely attempting to is going to make me a target for promoting gender ideology, and if you do not think there is a future where they criminalize that, you have not been paying attention.
Shame.
According to them, I am a predator. According to them, I am a threat. According to them, I am an enemy of the official stance of the United States of America. They do not just want me to have an ID that says M. They want me to disappear. Well, I won't. And they do this because fascism has one move. They have only ever had one strategy that works. They cannot win on policy. They cannot win on good faith arguments. The only move fascism has ever had is always exactly the same. One, choose a marginalized minority that lacks the social collateral and power in society to be able to adequately defend itself. Two, make them out to be a threat to the safety of the general populace of good, decent people. Three, play on their fear. Forecast themselves as the only ones who can be the defenders of the truly vulnerable people in society and ride that to consolidate power. I am not the first, my friends, and I will not be the last. Before me, it was, and frankly still is, Hispanic immigrants. Before them, it was leftists. Before them, it was Muslims. Before them, it was gays. Before them, it was drug addicts. Before them, it was hippies. Before them, it was communists. Before them, it was African Americans. Before them, it was Jews. Before them, it was Catholics. Before them, it was Asians. Before them, it was women. Before them, it was Native Americans. Before them, it was Italians and Irish and Jews again, and every single marginalized community that has ever been anything other than the white Anglo-Saxon Protestants that make up the ideal of society. It has always been the same. And the truly scary part is that it is working. It always works. Please do not make the mistake of thinking that everyone who thinks themselves good and decent knows the things that you know or thinks the way that you think. Over 50% of all polled voters in this past election, across party lines, said that the left has gone too far with transgender rights. This was easy when they spent decades publicly casting queerness and transgenderism specifically as sexual deviancy, as a morally weak failing, and when that is the case, of course, merely saying out loud, "I am here and I exist," is forcing perversion on everyone. I am not an abomination. I am not a deviant. I am not perverted unless you ask nicely. But every accusation is a confession, my friends. If in their minds every biological man is a predator trying to force their way into bathrooms to assault women, what does that say about what the men who say that thinks that every man wants to do? The implication that trans women are men is insulting to us, and the implication that all men want to assault women in bathrooms is insulting to men. And there is nothing further from the truth. Trans women are not asking to dominate women's spaces. Most of us are far too fucking scared. I am too afraid to pee in public bathrooms in my own city unless my girlfriends are there to scout for me, and if they aren't there as backup. And I, for one, am tired of the United States of America being a country where anyone within it is that frightened. To quote my wonderful nesting partner Darian, who is herself a cisgender woman, how long must womanhood be defined by making ourselves small for the benefit and comfort of another person? Trans women have to do it for cis women, BIPOC women have to do it for white women, all women have to do it for men, and we are sick of it! When Joe Biden won in 2020, I was in Brooklyn at the time when the results came in, and Brooklyn celebrated. Anybody else here that day? Yeah. Do you remember banging pots and pans and honking horns and cheering from the rooftops? When the left wins, people celebrate and the right gets scared, but no one is afraid. In both 2016 and 2024, when Trump won, how many of us were in New York City that next day? And how many remember that this entire city was as silent as a tomb? On election night, Darian was out of town, and I was alone, and I will never forget the sheer horror and terror and disbelief I felt alone in the dark watching the results came in. I sat in the center of my bed and sobbed hysterically all night long, and no country that causes its own citizens to sob in fear can possibly be good and right. We are not what I was always told America was. You are all here today because you are frightened. You can admit it, I sure as hell am. You are frightened and you are angry and you want to know how to help, right? For weeks, people have been coming up to me asking, how do I help? What we need now are people who are going to stand up for us and do the right thing. We need people who will not comply with this administration's efforts to erase us. We need defenders. We need the love of our community, and we need them to stand up for us and tell others and tell us, because we doubt it, that we belong and we are loved, and every single place that is full of people trying to get us to sit down, I tell us that we are allowed to stand there with you, and more than platitudes. It is time for direct action. I genuinely felt guilty for transitioning. Why? Because I knew that I was giving up the power and social collateral that I once had as a seemingly straight white cis man in order to be a voice for what is right. They won't listen to me anymore. I need you. I am the threat now. Spread the word, push back, educate, tell people what is happening to us, because they genuinely do not know outside of our political bubbles what is happening to us. Everyone talks about how eerily similar these past few months have been to how the Nazis took power. Well, what exactly were the very first books the Nazis burned? It was us, the Institute of Sexology. Everyone knows that this first Pride was a riot, right? This Pride Month's gonna be nuts, isn't it? What laws exactly were being broken that led to that riot? Cross-dressing! Make them say it! Cross-dressing! Do not let the revisionist and toxic rhetoric they are trying to pour down your throat stand. Be loud, push back, and disobey. Make fascists afraid to show their faces again. This is life or death, my friends. My people are already dying. And we fucking mattered. Sam Nordquist, the trans man who was tortured to death for weeks, fucking mattered. Elisa Ray Shupe, the Army veteran who won the landmark court case to win our right to have gender-neutral markers on federal documents and committed suicide 1 week after watching that right get stripped away, fucking mattered. Educate yourself on how to protect your community, and more than just trans people. Know what to say and how to help when ICE is in your community, because they already are. Do not let them cover up the political corruption they are constantly excusing and trying to force down your throat. Do not let them push their misinformation on toxic rhetoric on you or the people you love, because it works. This is not a trans issue. This is not an immigrant issue. This is not a political issue. This is a human issue. Only caring about your own rights is how you lose them. Before I give the mic to one of my fellow leaders of TQvoices, I just want to say I have been to my share of protests in the day. I went to marriage equality protests. I've been to protests for the Muslim travel ban in 2016, the last time Trump picked a scapegoat on day one. I've been to Black Lives Matter protests when I felt safe enough to navigate COVID. I went to the pro-Palestinian protests last year, but this is the very first movement that I have ever seen in my life where my flag is the one being waved, and I want to say thank you. Now don't let them ignore it.